We are going to fight again, whether it's in the octagon or on the sidewalk. You don't say the stuff he said.
McGregor obliterated Poirier in exactly 106 seconds of violence. A lightning-fast left hook sequence sent the Cajun warrior crashing to the mat, followed by brutal ground strikes that sealed the first-round destruction at the 146 mark. Referee Herb Dean ended the carnage as McGregor's meteoric rise towards superstardom accelerated beyond all expectations. For Poirier, this represented the most crushing, most publicly embarrassing defeat he had ever experienced inside the octagon. He would later confess that McGregor's ruthless psychological assault before the fight, the constant ridiculing of his defensive vulnerabilities, the arrogant predictions of a swift demolition, the complete dismissal of everything Poirier had sacrificed and earned throughout his young career, had infected his mental state entirely, forcing him to engage with reckless fury instead of disciplined strategy. Those 106 seconds of complete annihilation fundamentally transformed Dustin Poirier's entire philosophy toward fighting and his understanding of his own potential as a martial artist. During the following 6 years, as McGregor pursued and claimed the featherweight championship by obliterating Jose Aldo in a legendary 13-second masterpiece at UFC 194, then ascended to lightweight to demolish Eddie Alvarez and establish himself as the first simultaneous dual-division champion in organizational history, then ventured into boxing to battle Floyd Mayweather in one of the most financially successful combat sports spectacles ever staged, then returned to mixed martial arts only to submit to Khabib Nurmagomedov's suffocating dominance, then accumulated an expanding catalog of legal troubles, public controversies, and prolonged competitive absences. Throughout that entire period, Poirier methodically and relentlessly reconstructed himself from the foundation upward into one of the most lethal and comprehensively skilled lightweight assassins in the entire UFC ecosystem. He dismantled former champions Eddie Alvarez and Anthony Pettis with surgical precision. He destroyed Justin Gaethje in an instant classic that redefined violence as entertainment. He outpointed Max Holloway to capture the interim lightweight championship in April 2019. His striking evolved into a genuinely elite-level weapon, his ground game developed into a legitimate threat from multiple angles, and his calf kicks, those devastating, surgically placed low attacks targeting the peroneal nerve cluster on an opponent's lead limb, became the signature tactical innovation that would eventually redefine the McGregor rivalry completely.
I didn't have a goal, and when I found fighting, I wanted to be the best at that, so everything else didn't matter to me. You know, whatever that outlet is, even like I was talking with a guy, I just did a conference where I spoke in Mexico a couple of days ago. He has a nonprofit where he builds skate parks in cities, and he's built some in New Orleans. And I think just something so simple as a skateboard and a place to go ride and meet people and the camaraderie and stuff you learn from that to get out of bad places. Fighting was that for me. That was my safe place when I was young.
Jolie Poirier transported Dustin to his debut professional bout in Arkansas when he lacked even basic transportation. She endured the cheapest, most deteriorated motels across America, stained carpets and malfunctioning fixtures, while he prepared for contests that offered minimal financial compensation. She remained his foundation when he possessed no clear direction, his unwavering supporter when he doubted his own capabilities.
When I was in juvenile detention, and me and her might have not even been dating at the time, she was writing me letters every week. One of the only, besides my mother, only letters I would get was her. And when I got out of juvenile detention, she was there. She drove all the way out, to watch me leave and stuff like that. And I was like, I'm gonna marry this girl.
McGregor violated that sacred boundary by dragging Jolie's reputation through public humiliation, pursuing manufactured controversy and psychological manipulation designed to generate pay-per-view revenue. He shattered a line that Dustin Poirier has never, not once in all the years that followed, pardoned or dismissed from his memory. On July 10, 2021, inside the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, before a capacity crowd hungry for violence, Poirier entered the octagon to exact retribution against a man he now genuinely, profoundly, and completely loathed. UFC 264 represented the decisive rubber match, the third and ultimately final chapter of their trilogy. The opening exchanges crackled with mutual malice as both warriors unleashed their most destructive weapons. McGregor deployed spinning body attacks and precise straight lefts, while Poirier responded with leg kicks and relentless forward aggression. They clinched and crashed to the canvas where McGregor attempted a guillotine submission. Poirier escaped and retaliated with elbows and savage ground strikes from dominant position, accumulating 3 minutes and 18 seconds of control time compared to McGregor's absolute zero. Then in the final moments of the round, as both fighters exchanged heavy leather on the feet before separating, McGregor stepped backward to reset his positioning and his left tibia and fibula shattered horrifically beneath his own body weight in a compound fracture visible to every camera angle in the arena. He crumpled to the canvas in excruciating pain as referee Herb Dean halted the contest at the 5-minute mark via doctor's stoppage. Poirier emerged victorious through the most grotesque finish imaginable. The fracture likely originated from an earlier checked kick that compromised the bone structure before the backward step completed the catastrophic break. McGregor was transported from the venue on a stretcher, underwent emergency surgical repair, and has not competed in professional mixed martial arts since that evening, an absence that by February 2026 had extended beyond 4.5 years. The trilogy was definitively concluded with Poirier holding a commanding 2-1 series advantage. McGregor captured the initial encounter at featherweight in 2014, but Poirier dominated both lightweight rematches, finishing McGregor decisively each time across approximately 14 minutes and 18 seconds of combined action, brief explosive encounters that produced 2 knockouts and 1 shattered limb. Dana White briefly entertained the possibility of a 4th confrontation once McGregor recovered from surgery, but it never materialized. Rather than retreat into comfortable retirement following his trilogy triumph, Poirier persevered, continuing to face the most dangerous contenders on the planet. He challenged Charles Oliveira for the undisputed lightweight championship at UFC 269 in December 2021, losing via rear-naked choke submission in round 3 after competitive early exchanges. He battled Justin Gaethje for the symbolic BMF title at UFC 291 in July 2023, losing by unanimous decision in a brutal, exhausting war that exceeded every expectation. He rebounded with a dominant knockout victory over rising French contender Benoit Saint-Denis in March 2024, showcasing veteran intelligence and precision. He earned another championship opportunity at UFC 302 in June 2024, challenging dominant title holder Islam Makhachev, only to lose via 5th-round submission at the 242 mark, his 3rd unsuccessful pursuit of the one prize that perpetually slipped away at the cruelest possible moments. Finally, on July 19, 2025 at UFC 318 inside the Smoothie King Center in New Orleans, Louisiana, surrounded by his home community and the culture that transformed him from a troubled teenager into a world-class warrior, Dustin Poirier faced Max Holloway for the 3rd and final time in a 5-round farewell war for the BMF championship. Holloway captured unanimous decision victory, with scores of 48-47, 49-46, 49-46 in another classic back-and-forth battle. When the final bell sounded, Poirier placed his gloves at center octagon, embraced the crowd, and departed from professional competition with a career record of 30 wins, 10 losses, and 1 no contest at age 36. He accumulated 15 knockouts and technical knockouts inside the UFC, ranking 5th all-time in significant strikes landed with 1,861 total, tied for the most fight of the night bonuses in organizational history, with 10 awards, and 15 total post-fight performance bonuses throughout his career. 3 separate attempts at undisputed lightweight championship glory all concluded in defeat, the singular achievement that forever eluded his grasp regardless of proximity to success. Yet not a single authority anywhere in the mixed martial arts community questions whether Dustin Poirier deserves UFC Hall of Fame induction, his credentials standing beyond any reasonable dispute.
I didn't have a car. She drove me to my first fight in Arkansas. I didn't even have a car. Wow. She stayed with me like in a motel, the worst, like a Motel 8, Motel 6. They kept the lights on for us. It was barely, the carpet was soggy and nasty, and those kind of hotels.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, she drove me to weigh-ins, everything, I don't know. I just could never do that again with another person because she's seen the struggles from the beginning. So I could never rebuild this, and I never want to have to.
So when
the fundamental question that shadows everything following retirement remains straightforward. Could stepping away from competition finally extinguish this burning animosity? Consider the extraordinary emotional complexities operating simultaneously beneath the surface as Poirier, at 37 years old, officially retired, working as ESPN and Paramount analyst, residing back home in Lafayette, Louisiana, managing business ventures and braiding his 8-year-old daughter's hair after school, still carries the psychological weight of Conor McGregor's attacks on his wife during the darkest period of their rivalry. He still bears the scar tissue from that 2014 first-round destruction, those 106 seconds of complete annihilation that forced him to reconstruct his entire fighting identity from nothing. He still feels the sting of the charity controversy, the abandoned $500,000 donation pledge, the public questioning of his Good Fight Foundation's legitimacy by the most famous and most followed fighter on earth. He still endures the frustrating, maddening, perpetually gnawing awareness that despite maintaining a definitive 2-1 trilogy superiority over McGregor, despite finishing him twice at lightweight, despite outlanding him in significant strikes, out-controlling him on the ground, and outperforming him in virtually every meaningful statistical category across their final 2 encounters, a significant and persistently vocal segment of the global MMA fanbase continues elevating Conor McGregor above him in historical greatness discussions. The official record presents one clean, simple narrative: McGregor won at 145 pounds in 2014. Poirier won twice at 155. Remains far more complex, far more painful, and far less easily resolved than any win-loss record could capture. McGregor achieved status as the first UFC fighter to hold simultaneous divisional championships, owns the fastest knockout in title fight history at 13 seconds, transformed the sport's global popularity and commercial reach more than any single competitor in organizational history, and holds every fiscal record in company existence. Yet in the one rivalry that defined both careers with the greatest emotional intensity and highest personal stakes, Dustin Poirier emerged victorious on the scorecards, and Dustin Poirier absolutely, categorically, and ferociously refuses to allow any living soul on the internet to forget that fact. Whether a fourth confrontation between these men materializes at the White House or any other venue remains pure speculation as of February 2026, with McGregor's return opponent unconfirmed and Poirier's retirement reversal unannounced, but the hatred, the authentic, raw, unvarnished decade-plus animosity that has crystallized between these human beings through 3 fights, broken bones and broken promises, attacks on wives and charity disputes, deleted tweets and rejected olive branches, that hatred persists indefinitely. Diamond defeated his rival twice, retired on his terms in his home state before the people who raised him, and still awakened on a random Friday morning in February 2026 to remind every person on the internet exactly what transpired between them inside that cage. That represents not a grudge born of boredom or a retired man with excessive time, but a legacy carved in bone that will endure as long as both men draw breath.
So I might have been making $14,000 to fight, and I get a $65,000 check. I'm like, this is the life. This was how it's supposed to be. Got home, got out of debt, paid off my wife's car, She moved with me to Florida, dropped out of school. Like, that wasn't by chance. I don't believe in coincidence like that. This was all supposed to happen. The people I met in my life through fighting, Mike Brown. I mean, the list goes on and on of incredible minds I've met through fighting, but I don't believe it was coincidence. Like, this was the path I was supposed to. It was written before I started, following the script. I'm thankful, like, looking back on it now, because I still feel young, but sometimes I'll see old fights on TV and I'm like, man, I can't believe I came this far and done the things I've done. I'm just thankful. I try to stay in a place of gratitude.
That was Dustin Poirier speaking about Conor McGregor moments after snapping the Irishman's leg at UFC 264 in July 2021. 4.5 years later, officially retired and supposedly at peace with the world, the Diamond logged onto X and proved that promise was not just taught. The Diamond chooses violence. On February 7, 2026, exactly 7 months and 19 days after officially retiring from professional mixed martial arts by leaving his gloves inside the octagon in front of a roaring crowd at New Orleans, Louisiana, Dustin the Diamond Poirier, a man who had seemingly closed the book on one of the most decorated and fan-beloved careers in UFC history, picked up his phone, opened the X app, scrolled through his timeline, and did something that sent absolute shockwaves through the entire combat sports world. He did not announce a surprise comeback fight. He did not reveal a lucrative new business deal, or post a cryptic training highlights suggesting his retirement might be short-lived. Instead, the 37-year-old from Lafayette, Louisiana, quote, tweeted a video clip that had been posted the previous day by @Mastarma on February 6th, a clip showing Conor McGregor attempting a karate stance against Poirier during one of their past encounters, and attached to it 7 words that immediately detonated across the entire ecosystem of MMA social media, like a bomb with no warning. Beat is nuts. Felt so nice, I did it twice. Within 24 hours, that single post had accumulated over 15,000 likes, more than 900 reposts, and hundreds upon hundreds of replies and, quote, tweets from fans, media accounts, and fellow fighters who could not believe what they were seeing unfold in real time. A retired champion, 7 months removed from his farewell fight, still carrying enough raw, unfiltered venom toward his most famous rival to publicly eviscerate the biggest name in UFC history without a single shred of hesitation or regret, and he was far from finished. Poirier did not fire off that initial shot and log off to enjoy his Friday afternoon in peace. Late on the timeline, scrolled through the replies, and engaged in hand-to-hand digital combat with anyone and everyone who dared step into his mentions to defend Conor McGregor's honor. When a fan with the handle at @wingwe_ replied claiming that the third fight doesn't count, implying that the UFC 264 leg break stoppage was somehow not a legitimate victory for Poirier. Diamond fired back without an ounce of mercy. Check his record and my record, you. When another user accused Poirier of turning into a wrestler across the trilogy to avoid getting knocked out by McGregor's left hand, Poirier asked pointedly who actually initiated the grappling exchanges in those fights. And when yet another fan attempted to claim that the third fight was neck and neck before the freak leg injury ended it, Poirier shut the revisionist history down with surgical precision. Definitely not neck and neck, I was punishing him. The MMA media machine amplified every single word with breathless urgency. Home of Fight posted a full Instagram compilation of the entire tweet thread, captioning the episode as Poirier feeling bored and deciding on a whim to start posting about his battles with McGregor for the entertainment of the entire internet. A CDMMA screenshot of the exchange in its entirety and added the full breadth of Poirier's remarks for context, packaging it as a complete demolition job. The Fight course summarized the situation with characteristic bluntness, describing what Poirier was doing as methodically cooking McGregor's loyal defenders throughout the entire day. Fan accounts across Instagram and Threads reposted the screenshots with captions declaring that the hatred is real, as if anyone who had followed this rivalry for the past 12 years needed to be reminded of that particular fact. Fan reels described Poirier as outright eviscerating McGregor, and perhaps most significantly, MMA, uncensored, connected the social media barrage directly to the most tantalizing rumors circulating in the sport. Dustin Poirier goes off on Conor McGregor. Will we see a fourth fight? A question tied to the widely discussed possibility of a UFC event at the White House on June 14, 2006, where McGregor's long-awaited return to competition could theoretically headline, because here is the context that makes this more than a retired fighter, killing time on social media. McGregor has been teasing a return to the octagon relentlessly throughout early 2026. He has posted about being back in training camp. He has declared publicly that he possesses huge plans, a colossal bank, and modern medical science superpowers at his disposal. He has invoked God, recited the Lord's Prayer on his timeline, and promised the entire world that they have seen nothing yet. Meanwhile, reports from both Sportskita and Essentially Sports indicate that Poirier has specifically hinted at coming out of retirement to be the man who welcomes McGregor back to the cage, potentially at that rumored White House card that has captured the imagination of the entire MMA fanbase. McGregor, for his part, has remained conspicuously silent on Poirier throughout this cycle. As of February 8, 2026, no direct response from McGregor to any of the taunt posts has materialized. He has been posting on X about family, about cigars, about his Catholic faith, and about his ambiguous return timeline. But he has not engaged with Poirier's provocations in any way whatsoever. The shots, as of right now, are entirely one-sided, but make no mistake, this was not some random outburst from a bored retiree scrolling Twitter with nothing better to do. Poirier has repeatedly and emphatically denied any possibility of reconciliation with McGregor in multiple interviews over the years. When McGregor commented "Congrats bro" on a social media post, celebrating the birth of Poirier's newborn child in early 2026, a seemingly benign, even gracious gesture of goodwill from a former rival, Poirier dismissed it entirely, refusing to acknowledge the olive branch. In past sit-down interviews with Ariel Helwani, when asked directly and point-blank whether the feud with McGregor was finally over, Poirier's answer was exactly 2 words long, the second word being Conor, and the first being a vulgarity that cannot be repeated here. There has been no handshake. There has been no bearing of the hatchet. There has been absolutely nothing that even remotely resembles closure between these two men. To understand why, you have to travel back more than a decade, to the night of Brash. Trash-talking Irishman destroyed a kid from Cajun country in 106 seconds, and unknowingly set in motion one of the most deeply personal, most bitterly contested, and most commercially successful rivalries in the entire history of the Ultimate Fighting Championship. How the rivalry was built, how or so, and how it turned ugly. Their collision course began at UFC 178, held on September 27, 2014 at the MGM Grand Garden Arena in Las Vegas, Nevada. Conor McGregor was the ascending comet of the 145-pound featherweight division, a brash, impossibly confident, electrifying Irish southpaw, who had weaponized trash talk and psychological warfare into a performing art that the sport of mixed martial arts had simply never witnessed before at that caliber. Poirier, meanwhile, was a talented but still developing 25-year-old from Lafayette, Louisiana. A kid from deep in Cashing country who had dropped out of high school, spent time locked up in juvenile detention, and ultimately found salvation, identity, and purpose through combat sports when absolutely nothing else in his young troubled life could provide those things for him.